everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 70 for the week of March 29th, 2020. I'm your host, Drew, and I am joined by Will. Will, what's going on, man?
Hanging by a thread, Drew. I am surviving.
It does seem like that's pretty much all we can do these days, doesn't it, man?
It's been a long week, but outside of that, I'm actually quite well. You?
Yeah, all things considering, I really can't complain. We're still in the middle of a pandemic that unfortunately doesn't seem to be getting any better anytime soon. I think it's just going to get worse from here. But I know personally, this whole situation's got me pretty stressed out. Sounds like it's got you pretty stressed out too. Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to taking the next hour and thinking about something else for once.
Yeah, I'm excited to do a show, and I think it'll be good for us.
I agree. How's everything else going, man? Everything's good?
Yeah, just been plugging away at work, been working from home, and, that has its ups and downs. I would say mostly ups. I don't really miss the office. I think it would be a lie if I said that I do miss the office, but, being cooped up in a room is not always super great either. So, pros and cons, just like anything else. But, I've been doing a little bit of gaming here and there, and I'm excited to talk about that. And, surprisingly well considering what's happening. But I agree with you. I think mentally it can be kind of exhausting with everything that's going on, even if you're productive.
It's super difficult to think about anything else. It is. I've had the past week off from work. This is something that I had planned months ago. I was originally supposed to go to Chicago for a video shoot, and long before coronavirus was becoming a major issue, that shoot got canceled for unrelated reasons. But I had to use my personal time because it's all resetting on April 1st, so I kept the week. I'm like, this would be a great opportunity for me to take a vacation and, get a lot done. And, I've been extremely productive, but I'd be lying if I said this has turned out the way I wanted it to. It's just a very weird situation that we're in, and it really seems like fiction. And I gotta say, there's been a couple times where I kind of wish I was going to work just to have some sense of normalcy, because my routine is really out of sorts right now. I've been extremely productive. I've gotten stuff done around the house. I've gotten my main project started, which was to clean up the miniature GameStop. There was a lot of work that needed to be done in that room. I kind of let it go. So been doing a lot of stuff in here. I spent some time setting up Nikki's room so that she has an office to work from, so that she's been working from home all week. I hung up some curtain rods, which I've been putting off for a while. What else? We did some yard work yesterday. It was a beautiful day yesterday and today, so I was out in the yard. I've been super productive. I've been working on a short film, mixing the audio for a short film, which has been fun. So I have this whole list of things that I've been accomplishing, some of them completion, some of them just kind of checking off a little bit at a time. But at the same time, man, just in the back of my mind, there's just this horrible, horrible crisis going on. And it's been difficult.
Yeah, I think, just listening to kind of explain what you've been up to, I think it's so much about who you are as a person. And I think right now we're realizing how this challenge, how people are kind of handling it. Some people are just simply freaking out and they're going stir crazy. And then you have other people that are being very productive, like you and myself. And then you have the other folks that are just kind of sort of nonchalant about it and just kind of waking up, and if they're at home and they're working from home, or if they're just getting paid to not work, they're just kind of not really doing anything, and they're okay with that. So I guess it kind of shows a little bit about your character and how you would approach a situation like this. But I think if you look at it in a positive way, there are a lot of positives to this, and it's allowing us to live a little bit differently and maybe get back to some of our roots of reading and writing and doing things for us, and not so much about just gallivanting, out in the world just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. That it's certainly been more beneficial in that way. We're not just going out to get out, we're doing other things instead.
Mm-hmm.
Including gaming, which has been fun. So let's talk about that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So first of all, thank you everybody for hitting that download button. You're listening to episode 70 of Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You can find us on the web at WDGRPodcast.com. That's www.WDGRPodcast.com. We got all kinds of stuff on there, including Music Mondays or occasionally a Music Tuesday, blogs and episodes of this podcast as well. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGR Podcast. Will, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Sure. If you're on Twitter, check me out at Will_gear. You
can find me at CyanStorm. So, Will, let's just jump right in, man. What have you been playing lately?
God of War, and my God, is this game phenomenal.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I talked about this briefly on the last episode, but now I'm so much further in the game.
We spent it wasn't brief, but we didn't dive too deep into it either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited because as I said last time, man, this is a game that's been on my must play list for a very long time. I even have a copy. It's just sitting there collecting dust. So tell me as much about this game as you can.
Sure, without spoiling it, no problem. It might be a little bit tough, but I think I could work around this. So I think the first time I played was like a week or so ago, and I fell off for like a short while, but I picked right back up on last Saturday. I played at night, and then I really hunkered down on Sunday. That's where I think the bulk of my gameplay happened. Then I played Monday, and then I think I might have played Tuesday, but I know for sure that I did not play last night, and I did not play the night before, so that would have been Wednesday. So I've missed a couple days just because of reasons, but what I've played has just been remarkable. I can totally see now, even though I'm probably not even halfway through the game, why this, I think it got Game of the Year. It was definitely a contender.
Oh, yeah. It won a lot of awards when it came out.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. I think I might have mentioned before that the gameplay is a little bit different. We talked about the camper perspective, and that issue is kind of gone now. I am totally on board with the new camper perspective, which is basically just right behind Kratos, sort of a traditional third person. And I've just fallen in love with the mechanics and how deep the game actually is as well. I mean, this is a very new take on the series, and I can really see why, because they've added so many RPG elements into upgrades and how you can upgrade your armor and your weapon. And Atreus, who's your son, you can really help his armor out and his weapons. And there's just an enormous amount of depth in the menu systems and the upgrades to all of that stuff. And there's an enormous amount of like move sets that you can unlock. It's incredibly expansive, and I'm not too worried about that right now because I'm fine with just kind of a basic move set of just kind of tossing the axe and having it come back and just kind of fighting people, and occasionally using Spartan Rage, which I definitely want to talk about here for a second. So,
okay.
Kind of circling back to Asura's Wrath, it kind of reminds me of that because when Kratos gets, it's sort of like a combat rage, like when he's been battling for a while. I don't really know exactly what triggers it, but I think it's when you've been in battle with like a lot of enemies and maybe you're getting hurt a lot. I forget what kind of heightens the gauge, but when it's glowing red at the bottom left, you hit L3 and R3 at the same time, and Kratos just fucking goes ape shit. You know, he kind of just stops and throws his arms out, and it's very much like a Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off kind of thing. The Velveeta shirt. And yeah, you go crazy, and all of a sudden you just seem invincible. And it's quite possible that you may be invincible, sort of, while you're in Spartan Rage. Again, I'm not too sure on the mechanics, but you're able to just kind of swing like crazy and just do some pretty crazy moves on an enemy, and it allows you to take down an enemy that maybe you're struggling with more quickly because you are more powerful. But just the sound of Kratos being that angry was very reminiscent of Asura at his worst. So that was really a special thing for me because I was like, oh man, like it was one of those like, this is a cool game kind of moment for Will.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the game like immediately after that. But yeah, the world is so stunning. Every place that I've gone to, it gets more and more beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful game. It's not super gritty. There are some definitely dark areas, and it's very Nordic. Kind of reminds me of Hellblade quite a bit.
Okay.
It's sort of an icy, kind of a cold feeling about the game. I mean, you can generally see Kratos's breath or the condensation coming from his breath or whatever in many points in the game, if not all of them. I've encountered numerous mini bosses, regular bosses that have been quite challenging but incredibly rewarding. I actually fought this one, I won't even say what it is, but it's a pretty enormous boss. And he had like a wave of enemies that I had to fight at the same time. So like I'm running around, I'm fighting off the enemies, I'm using Atreus to shoot arrows at the same time by like mashing square, because when you mash square, he'll shoot arrows for you. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing that. I'm fighting enemies. I'm hitting square. I'm fighting the big boss. I'm doing everything all at once. I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is a real challenge. And I came so close to dying. I think I had like a sliver of health. And at a last resort, I saw that I had Spartan Rage. I activated it, beat the boss, beat the rest of the enemies, and then I stood there and I was like, game of the year. Game of the fucking year. And that doesn't happen to me that often. Like it usually has to be a moment like that really just gets me all fucking excited the way Skyrim does.
Yeah.
So I'm invested, and I'm so glad because, as most people know, as well as you know this about me a lot, it takes a lot for me to really get engaged with the game. And this game has done enough to engage me. So now I'm very committed to it. And even though I was playing Gravity Rush and everything, I'm very committed to God of War right now. Yeah. The story is very good. It's very simple premise. I can't really talk about it too much, but basically you're just traveling throughout this world with your son. You're developing a stronger relationship with him and teaching him how to fight and sort of hone his skills in basic combat. Mm-hmm. And he has to traverse this world with you because you have a mission to do something that's very meaningful for you and him. Okay. You meet some people along the way. I've met a couple vendors. There's definitely like what are you buying? Like those kind of characters exist. I've met one selling? Or two. Yep. Yeah, there's been a couple moments, man, where I've just stopped and stared, very much like I have in many other games that are just stunning. I mean, this Santa Monica Studios is so brilliant at what they do, and Kratos his character model. I've never seen a character model so smooth. Everything about him is just completely polished, like his head, everything, the way he blinks, his eye movement. Obviously, they use some pretty extensive mocap. And it shows. It really shows.
So with this game, they decided to go with the Nordic gods, right? They're no longer doing Greek mythology.
That's correct.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
And it looks like they captured that vibe, as far as I can tell, with the clothing and, Kratos' epic beard.
Yeah, it's more rustic.
Like, it's more rustic. I think that's something that's pretty cool, that they realize that they kind of ran the Greek well dry, so to speak.
Yeah. I, kind of going back to what I said, like about how they really changed this game for, kind of compared to how the other games are in the series, like that Greek stuff is gone. And even just the overall sheen and some of the elements that you saw in those older games is just not really present here. This is very hardy and raw. Right. And, and rustic, like I said. I mean, just looking at Kratos in that link that you posted, it's a simple outfit that he's wearing. He also has like a built-in shield in his left arm, like his left forearm. Okay. He'll kind of like when you hit the block button, like it kind of fans out, like very similar to, I think it's the umbrella mechanic in Sekiro. There's something very similar to that. So that's super cool. And the combat just feels really good. It's very explosive. It's very, I don't know, like you can do like a lot with like your shield, and you can do like bashes, and you can essentially parry as well. And it's very, very reminiscent of like King Leonidas from 300, which is obviously a good thing. Mm-hmm. There's a couple moments where you can do like shield bashes that are just so epic. And then you can, I think I said before, you can throw your Leviathan axe and leave it for a while and then summon it back, or you can just kind of toss it and summon it back almost immediately, so it kind of goes out real quick and then comes right back. It's fairly extensive. You use it a lot too to like open up areas. Like if you can't open a door, you might have to throw your axe and lodge it into something. That seems to be a pretty big mechanic in the game.
Interesting.
Like I already gone through a couple puzzles where I had to open up certain spiked like ceilings and floors and stuff, and I had to like time things perfectly with like throwing the axe and bringing it back and then throwing it to a different section. So it's got some of those sort of puzzle platformer kind of moments, but they're good. Everything is just very well executed, and I think Joe explained this game best. He's like, dude, the story is great, the gameplay is good, and overall it's just a very polished, well-made game. And a simple way of explaining it to somebody, but it rings so true.
So if you had a guess, like how far or how many hours do you think you've put into this so far?
That's really hard to say. I think I had asked you and Joe about this, and unfortunately it looks like this is one of those games that does not track it. Okay. I could probably ballpark it. Well, let's see, I played all day Sunday, so I've got to be like, I have to be like 10 hours plus.
Really?
Have to be, which is a big deal for Will.
Oh, yeah.
To be this deep into a game. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to playing it later on tonight and over the weekend. That's absolutely happening because I got to make up for a couple days I lost. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I could mention. The music is good. It's not very often that you hear music, but it's there.
Doesn't take anything away, just kind of enhances what's happening.
Enhances it. There's a lot of really good sound effects too. Like when you open up the menu, you hear like a, and then when you close it, it's like another like, and it's like very, it sounds like maybe you're trapping like a demonic like angel inside of like a hellish door. Like it's like you're closing off the doors to like hell. And I know that sounds like horrifying, but it just sounds so good. They've paid so much attention to creating like a sort of creepy Nordic sort of atmosphere. And even the enemies like have like a very creepy vibe to them. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of an intimidating game. And Hellblade was very much the same thing. Had a lot of those elements.
Interesting.
So overall, man, just stunning. This is a masterpiece of a game, and like I said, I'm not even done with it at all. But I can say very comfortably that I think that this is a masterpiece, and I'm sure I'll feel even stronger about it once I'm done with it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing your final thoughts on this, and it's kind of getting me hyped up for playing the game too, man. Like I've had it for so long, and I don't know why I haven't put it in yet.
You know what's nice about it too is there's a good sense of direction. Like there are plenty of games that I want to play, like Red Dead Redemption 2, and some of those games are equally as stunning, and the gameplay is great, but they're so open in terms of being an open world, and there's so much to do that we've talked about this, we've exhausted it before about how like sometimes you don't know where to start. With God of War, the pacing is really good. So it keeps you engaged and you don't end up straying off and left wondering like, what do I do now? And you're just kind of on a path. So I wouldn't say it's linear, but it keeps you in a good sense of direction and you don't get bored. And I think that's super important these days.
That's cool. My cat just jumped up on my desk, and he's literally between me and the microphone. I apologize.
That's fine.
So, like, if you hear, like, brushing on the microphone, it's because his fucking fluffy-ass tail is, like, rubbing on it.
No worries, man.
Do you hear him purring? He's purring.
No.
No? I'm surprised. Buddy, you gotta go. Sorry about that, folks.
Oh, you know what's kind of cool too? Last thing I'll say, the dialogue is really simplistic. It's very low key. A lot of it's just like, boy, no. Or it'll be like, I'm dead serious, dude. Or it'll be like, you hunt, in the direction of deer. And then
So
he'll be like, it's just very like he's a man of few words, but the words are meaningful.
It definitely sounds that way. Is there like any kind of dialogue option with this, or you're just like you're just a watching participant with the story?
I think it's watching. Like, I don't know if there's any way to like turn it off, or like, it's just an automated built-in thing.
Yeah, but you're never given a choice on what to say.
No. I mean, unless that comes later, which I doubt it will. This is very much like kind of watching a movie. One thing I have noticed is you really have to pay attention to what's happening in terms of what they're saying, because there were a couple moments where I actually was not really paying like super close attention. I think my mind was like slightly thinking about something else like a couple times while dialogue was happening, and I actually did have to go back on YouTube and sort of do a quick refresher, because there was a moment where I was like, wait, why are we doing this? And I missed a very small piece of dialogue, but it was very important.
Okay.
So I will say that if you are going to play this game, and this is for you or anybody, you really do have to pay attention, because of the way that they explain things. It's through dialogue, and if you're not listening to every piece of it, you will miss like pretty major story arcs.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Make sure the phone is in the other room when I'm playing, kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. And if it's not, you're probably going to be going on YouTube like a couple days later.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. Definitely have me very interested in making some time for this next.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good to fall in love with a new game.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. Yeah, man. I've been playing Doom Eternal.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure you are. I want to play it so badly. It's everywhere. It's like the coronavirus. Like, I'm seeing Doom just on all forms of social. I mean, I know that you've been playing it. You've been having a great time with it. Tell me a little bit more about it.
So I think I'm not really sure how far into it I am. I want to say I'm on like the 5th stage. And right off the bat, I think it's super important to recognize that the levels in this game are massive. They are so fucking big. It's not even a joke. The way the first game kind of introduces levels to you, they get progressively larger and larger and more involved as the game goes on. But this game, from the first stage, just like biggest level you've ever played right off the bat. And they kind of start feeding you different skills as you go along. By the time you're in the 3rd stage, you pretty much have access to just about everything as far as mechanics go that you'll need.
Okay.
You have the ability to jump. You have the ability to grab onto walls. You have the ability to double jump. You can dash, which is a new mechanic in the game. Dashing was not part of the 2016 Doom, as far as I can recall. Neither was like climbing on walls and stuff. So they've added like this element of platforming to the game that wasn't really necessarily there in Doom 2016. That game definitely rewarded you for exploring, but I think this game does so at a whole nother level. There are so many secrets in each level that, it really does pay off if you take the time to just explore. This game is gorgeous. It runs wonderfully. There have been a couple cases where I've had brief hiccups, which I think I've kind of isolated down to like situations where I'm hitting like an imaginary wall, like, trying to keep me within the stages. Because, with a game that allows you to explore as much as this, inevitably you're going to try to go someplace you're not supposed to, right? And in those cases, I've had slowdown. But when there's enemies on the screen and I'm fighting balls to the wall, and it just like, and when I say enemies, like, we're not talking like 1 or 2, like they fucking like unload as many things that'll fit on the screen as possible. It's absurd. This game is running at a smooth 60 frames per second. It does not drop. battle, like the game is hard, super challenging, even on low difficulties. I started out on ultra violence. I was getting wrecked in the first stage.
I've heard about this. It seems to be quite the talk of the town right now.
Yeah, they're because the game adds that dash and you have the double jump. There's a lot of vertical movement in this game. There's a lot of like launch pads that like send you into the air. Mm-hmm. And then eventually you get a super shotgun, and the super shotgun comes with a harpoon attached to it. Think like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, where he throws the harpoon. But instead of bringing the enemy to you, it brings you to the enemy. So you lock onto an enemy with this harpoon, you fire it, and all of a sudden now you're flying through the air with a double-barreled shotgun.
That's kind of terrifying.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Imagine if you did it on accident, though. You're like, oh, no.
Well, I mean, that happens because, you'll launch yourself into an enemy that you can't one-shot with that gun. Uh-huh. And that can be kind of tricky. But, it retains a lot of the same mechanics, like the glory kills from the first game. And when I say the first game, I mean 2016. So like when you stagger an enemy to the point where they're near death, they start glowing blue and orange. Okay. And if you press in the right thumbstick within a reasonable distance from them, you'll basically jump in and do like an exaggerated kill, like a fatality kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it turns the enemies into health or ammo or armor, depending on what kind of settings you have. Because you can customize your character to some degree. As far as I can tell, in this game, you can only get health from the glory kills. In 2016, you were able to also get armor, if I recall correctly. Okay. I'm trying to... There's a couple details I might mix up. I apologize in advance. So somebody please write me a nasty email, WDGRpodcast@gmail.com. But
we're gonna get that. Well, technically,
yeah. There's that one guy that's sitting in the. This fucking guy. He doesn't even play the game.
Yeah. Yep. It always happens.
The chainsaw they give to you pretty quickly, and in the last game, it was a means of refilling your ammunition. But there were also like a lot of ammo sources around the levels as well too. In this game, you're using the chainsaw way more frequently. The chainsaw was kind of like your I'm fucked kind of situation in the last game. In this game, it's one of your main weapons. Instead of like finding canisters of fuel, it slowly recharges over time. And yes, there are canisters of fuel out there in the world, but they're kind of sparse. Like you don't find them too often, but you don't really need them either. The only time that I would ever see a need for having more than one can of fuel right now is when you start getting into enemies that require more than one can to kill. So, hold on a second. I think my neighbors are murdering each other.
I think I heard some of that. I was like, what is that?
I'm going to close my window. Stand by.
Yeah, right.
All right. I'm sorry about that. We're going to leave that in.
Jumbo marshmallows. I said jumbo.
Is that what they said? I
don't know. It sounded something like that.
Oh my God. Anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, like, depending on the size of the enemy, you can potentially chainsaw them or you won't have enough fuel for them. So like a Mancubus is like a 3 fuel canister enemy, or Revenant requires 3 fuel, but like a smaller enemy like a regular zombie or an imp, you only need 1 can of fuel to do that, and that 1 can recharges on its own. I have not unlocked the ability to hold more than 1 can at a time yet. I'm not sure when that's going to come. Hopefully soon, because I have really wanted to chainsaw some Mancubi and I haven't been able to yet. What else? Let's see here. Oh, the Doomslayer has a fortress.
Okay.
The game has like I don't want to call it a hub world, but there's essentially like, it's like your home base, right? And as far as I can tell, like the dude just has a fucking space station orbiting the Earth, looking down at all the chaos. he teleports down to Earth. He walks through a portal, lands on Earth, goes and kicks ass, and then when he's done, he just goes back up to the space station to eat dinner. And it's really kind of interesting because they've used this as a way to give you like a ton of Easter eggs. So, for example, like I mentioned before, there's so many secrets in each level in this game. You can unlock like old school music tracks.
Okay.
And when you find an album as a secret, basically when you go back to your fortress, that album is now hanging on your wall. And you can go up and press like a play button and you'll hear that song playing throughout the entire fortress as you're walking around.
Huh.
There's also carried over from the last game. There were hidden items, which were essentially like Funko Pops for Doom.
Okay.
Right. So each of the monsters has its own toy variation, and you find them and you collect them and then you put them on a shelf. And there's like an actual display case.
That's so cool.
There's for no reason, the Doomslayer has a bunch of guitars on his wall and all of them are shaped like literal axes. So that's pretty cool. For fans of the novels, the Doom novelization, there are quite a few Easter eggs there, including a stack of magazines with Taggart Publishing. Flynn Taggart was the name of the Doom guy in the 4 novel series that came out back in the late 90s, which our friend Dave was nice enough to narrate a couple passages from episode 50 there.
Yeah, that's an unforgettable moment.
Oh, it really is. Well, they gave a nice nod to those, and I think there was a nod to the comic books as well somewhere, which I have never read, so I didn't notice it. And then there's a ton of unlockables as well that actually will benefit your character, both power wise or aesthetically. So in each map, there's a couple items that you can locate. They're basically called, they're called Sentinel batteries. And basically these power sources that you plug in your base and they'll unlock doors, which might have like a weapon upgrade to like a weapon mod, or there's these things called Sentinel crystals, which you can use to upgrade like your armor or your ammo capacity or your health capacity. And they give you perks as well. Like there's this one power called a flame belch. And what it does is it sets demons on fire, but when they're on fire, they're also spitting out ammo. You can enhance that so the speed in which, I'm sorry, not ammo, armor. They start dropping armor. Excuse me. So while they're dropping armor, you can upgrade that so that they drop armor at a faster rate. Which, if you have armor, you don't take health damage. Basically, your any damage that hits you, it goes through your armor first, and then it goes through your health. So the more armor you have, the better, right? It's like a second life bar, essentially. Neither armor nor health regenerate, by the way. This is not Halo. This is not most games where you just hide in a corner and your health comes back. You have to actively go and either find power-ups to heal yourself, like health packs, or kill things, which will, if you're doing your glory kills, it'll drop health and heal you. So the game really forces you to be very aggressive in combat, especially. What else? Let's see here.
How do you know what to shoot first?
Well, I mean, there's certain enemies have weak spots. So, for example, the Mancubus, it's that big fat creature that has the 2 gigantic rocket launcher / flamethrower arms. You can shoot his arms off, and he loses control of like the flamethrower ability. Revenants, you can shoot the rocket launchers off. Those are the ones that come up on the top of them. The Arachnotrons have a plasma rifle launcher on the top of them. You can shoot that off. So I mean, I think depending on the situation you're in, it's in your best interest to try to disarm those enemies if possible. But really, the best thing to shoot is the thing that's in front of you. If that makes any sense. Just
okay.
The levels, basically, whenever there's a situation where you have a swarm of enemies, It's kind of like a closed arena where that battle takes place. And there's a lot of verticality to it. So you can kind of jump up, drop down, jump up. But you want to constantly move, and you want to constantly be firing, moving in, being aggressive, making a kill, moving on to the next one. Standing still is your worst enemy.
Yeah.
This isn't a game where you're going to sit back and snipe. Yes, you have a sniper rifle. You're going to get maybe 1 or 2 shots off of that thing before you're fucked. So you use those shots wisely, maybe to disarm a Mancubus or disarm a Revenant or whatever. And then you're putting that thing away, and you're pulling out a plasma rifle, you're pulling out your double-barrel shotgun, whatever. And you're just going on the offense from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very offensive... I shouldn't say offensive. Well, it might be for some, but no, it's very offensive in terms of the play style for sure.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is all about attacking, not retreating. And if you're retreating with your gun shooting. You might be running away from one thing, but there's something else that's trying to intercept you, because these enemies, like, they follow you, they hunt you down, they are not fucking around. And this game is throwing a lot of things at you at once.
Tell me a little bit about, tell me a little bit about the up close, like, finisher type moves that you can do. I know there's quite a few of those. Yeah,
so those are the glory kills. And, as I mentioned before, that's going to be your main way of getting health, especially when you're in a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Each enemy has a handful of different glory kills that are available to it. And depending on whether you're coming at it from the front, from the side, from behind, or from above even, is going to change the animation for the glory kill. It's super simple. You just want to make sure that the enemy is staggered enough to the point where they're glowing like a blue, orange. It goes back and forth between the two colors. And it's not a permanent glow either. If you don't capitalize on that in time, they can recover and get back in the fight. There are perks that you can use to lengthen the amount of time that they're staggered. They're definitely worth acquiring because they do make a huge difference. And,
I want to hear about the details, though. Like, tell me about, like, what some of these glory kills actually are. Like, what's happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's one for, like, the Cadcademus, for example. Basically, you jump up to the thing, you grab onto it, you rip its eye out, and then you shove it in its mouth.
There we go.
There's one where, like, you take the Revenant's arm, you rip off its arm, and it's already bony as shit, and you're stabbing it in the face with its arm. The Arachnotrons, they have like, I guess, grenades on the sides of them. I don't know. But you're essentially grabbing one of its own weapons and shoving it into it and making it explode. Mancubus, you're ripping off its own heart. Essentially what you're doing with a lot of these glory kills is using the enemy's own weapons against it, if possible.
Okay.
Some of the lower tier enemies, you might be literally ripping it in half. Like, I remember there was an imp that I went up to. I grabbed it by its face and, like, thumbs in the eye sockets, ripped it in half, right down the middle.
Oh.
You're stomping on heads, you're snapping necks, you have a blade on your arm, and you're using that blade to stab things. Those are probably the bulk of what I've seen so far. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of videos of, gameplay, and those glory kills just look nightmare-inducing.
But you know what the thing is, man? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm desensitized to it, but they tend to happen very quickly.
Okay.
And you don't really have time to think about the awesomeness of what had just happened, because you got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And there's even a perk that reduces the time that those glory kills take. So I can make it so that I'm going through enemies much faster. It's like basically putting the kill on fast forward, I guess. I don't know. And that perk is going to help you because, it gives the other enemies around you less time to get to you to, attack.
I also kind of feel like maybe Doom Guys or Flynn Taggart, I feel like his his meal of choice is like Campbell's chunky hearty soup.
Yeah. Extra meaty edition, right?
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. I'm trying to think if there's any like food references in the Doomslayer's Fortress. There's a computer which has some very interesting files on it. I'll have to take a screenshot of it for you. Like instead of like porn, he has like, shotguns.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Wow.
You know how people have like folders of stuff on their desktop?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, stuff like that.
What about how is Mick Gordon impressing you so far?
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The soundtrack is great. The metal choir worked out very well.
Okay.
Because there's like, I think my favorite passages with the metal choir have been the ones where like things are a little bit more calm, and the choir is kind of in the background. Just like you hear like this just like very like low guttural like chanting, in a language that doesn't even make sense.
Maybe like Viking-like almost?
Kinda. Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite tracks from 2016 is in the game BFG Division. That was a nice throwback that happens in one of the early on stages. But overall, like, basically the music is kind of in the background, very kind of subdued. And then when you get into that monster arena, it's fucking degent metal to like volume 11. It's
crushing.
It's crushing. And, I think Mick has done it again. I haven't had a chance to like fully digest the music yet. I'll probably circle back to it again once the soundtrack is available to listen to, because that's really when I'm going to have the opportunity to fully enjoy it. Right now, I'm hearing it, but I'm not absorbing it because I'm so focused on the gameplay.
That's awesome.
But I can't recommend this enough. I'm having a blast with it. I don't know. I'm not willing to say it's better than 2016 yet because I haven't finished it yet. I've just recently encountered my first boss, and it was super challenging. The game is without a doubt harder, but I also feel like it's a little bit more rewarding than 2016 was, and especially when it comes to the exploration. There's one stage where I already know I missed some things, and they make it very easy for you to go back. And I plan on going back and getting those things.
Word.
So, check it out. Maybe even when you're done with God of War, give it some thought. It is fun.
It seems like something that is a little bit obviously more pick up and play. Like after work, I could just fire it up and get through like a couple areas and then turn it off, sort of thing.
Well, I mean that's kind of how I felt as well too, but. Like, I mean, I guess it depends on what you define as an area. Like, if you're looking to finish a stage is going to take you a few hours.
Jesus.
These are big stages. And I'm talking if you like 100% it,
Okay.
Like, I'm trying to get as many secrets as possible on my first playthrough because they do have a direct benefit to you. There's super challenging areas where you can unlock like rune abilities and upgrades to your Doomslayer, armor, like I said, ammo, health, those perks really do make a difference. They're worth getting. Some of the other stuff is kind of bullshit, like the Funko Pop toys, for example. Like, they don't really do anything. They're cool. They look nice on your shelf. It's a nice bonus. But then there's other stuff like, for example, 1-ups. Your character can actually pick up like a legitimate 1-up in the level, which is really bizarre. They super gamified this game. If you die, that 1-up kicks in, immediately respawns you exactly where you stand. You don't even get a loading screen. It's just like, oh, you're back in the fight. Let's go. So that's kind of interesting. And there's actually a game mode that takes advantage of that too, where you can use, basically you keep playing until you run out of 1-ups. And you try to get as far as you can.
I gotta say, listening to like all of this and thinking about the history of Doom, and even though I'm not super educated on every single game, I remember playing some of the early Dooms on PC back in the 90s, and I think it's one of the most I wouldn't say, I guess you could say polished, but it's nice to see like how far they've come, and they've been able to figure out like, how do we make this game better every single time? And I think they're one of the few game series that's been able to do that so well.
Well, if you think about it, they've rarely delivered the same experience twice.
Yeah.
You know, Doom 1 to Doom 2 wasn't a huge leap. You know, you had different levels, you had new enemies. I think that was probably the truest sequel that we've seen from them. And, you know, there were a couple of, id Software releases that came with it too, like Final Doom. They weren't the ones that created those levels. Yes, they published it, but, those weren't their levels. But then, like, you go from Doom 2 to Doom 3, and it's a drastic shift. And then from Doom 3 to Doom 2016, completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
And then even from Doom 2016 to Doom Eternal, fundamentally a very similar game, but it's offering a very different experience so far. So they're very much changing the formula each time. Now, I don't know where they go from here. I think they've kind of established, their audience with this series right now. Mm-hmm. And they've kind of come up with a formula that's working, and they've made some tweaks on it to change it. But like, if they're going to keep reinventing the wheel, I don't know what's next.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree, and even though I haven't played much of it at all, it seems like Doom 2016 is really what kind of like lit the fire in everybody's eyes into why Doom needs to be played again. Because
it's a different experience than anything else that's out there,
Yeah, because like it's kind of interesting actually how Doom 2016 came out, and like everybody all of a sudden was like a Doom fan, and Doom's been around for obviously a long time. But in a lot of ways, no one was really playing any Doom games. So that really kind of, I think, helped reignite the franchise. And it's nice to see that they're focusing on what works. And it seems to be, heavy 8-string guitar chugging with just raw violence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it, man. And there was something else I wanted to say too, and I just lost it.
Was it about Doom 2016 or the Doom before that?
Oh, it's about this game too. If you're a fan of Quake 3 Arena,
I am.
This is going to feel very familiar to you.
I love Quake 3 Arena, especially. Well, I think it only came out on PC and Dreamcast, right?
As far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a great game. I love Quake.
It was a lot of fun on the Dreamcast. I didn't play it on the PC all that much. I didn't really have a computer that was able to run it back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have a copy. For Dreamcast, and I played a lot of that. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have like a bot system too. Like I remember loading that up, and the bots were like pretty good. Like the AI was great.
Yeah, it was. You could play it online. I never did, but it was an option. And then the bots, were a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, if you have a Dreamcast and you're not, sure what to pick up, if you don't have a copy of that, I think it's worth grabbing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think when I start putting more of a focus on some of those systems that I still have, I need to start playing around with other games that are not in the fighting realm, because that's all I really have for those systems right now. Because that was all purchased for one fucking night.
Yeah, the Dreamcast
or one day really. But
the Dreamcast is so good, man.
Oh God, yeah, I'm so glad I have one. There's
so much on there that is worth your time.
Yeah, so I'm sure that'll be in the collection again someday.
Awesome. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about Doom right now. I mean,
I think it's good. It's good that both of us right now have a lot to talk about, and it's only really about one game, but that doesn't matter. We're currently in love.
Yeah, I haven't been playing it every day, admittedly. I've been trying to kind of split my attention up against multiple things while I've been home.
Okay.
So, it hasn't been an everyday game, but I've been playing it most days.
Yeah, it's first on the docket.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, we've basically talked about 2 games for a very long time. We haven't even opened the mailbag.
Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll start with Buxor. He asks, what's the most ridiculous representation of VR or gaming that you can think of from Hollywood? There's an episode of Futurama where they all go on the internet and they wear VR goggles That was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. You know what? I wouldn't say it's Hollywood, but that show Black Mirror, they definitely did an episode that was VR related. It wasn't really a headset. It was more of like a very futuristic VR experience, something that could very well be possible. It was like some kind of dot that they put on, I think, on the side of their temple. And it was a really good episode. A really good episode, actually.
Interesting.
So
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, it was. Well, you've seen the show, right?
Not every episode, but
okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So basically, they use that system and they are transported into a fighting game, and it's very like Street Fighter like. And dude, it was a really good episode. So I would say just that. I don't know if I can really think of VR being used in any other movie that I've seen. I could be wrong. I could be like missing something, but
yeah,
I can't really think of much else outside of that.
I mean, it seems like something that was really more of like a 90s kind of film topic,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to think of a good example, and I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I mean, when I reread this question, he's saying VR or gaming. I mean, if we're going to talk about gaming in a movie,
sure,
then that one movie, and you probably will think of this. What was that movie that was like, I think it was like an 80s or 90s video game film, and it was something about like a Nintendo tournament, and the kid had that fucking, that Nintendo glove.
Was it The Wizard?
It was something. It was something like that. It was like a blonde kid that had the Nintendo glove thing.
Yeah.
And,
so after his little brother Jimmy is put on mental institution, Fred Savage, who plays Corey, breaks him out, and the pair run off together to California. On their travels, Corey meets a girl named Haley, discovers that Jimmy is a master of playing video games.
Yeah, I remember that being good.
Yeah, that's pretty sure that's where the Power Glove came. Let me see. Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, and before I forget this,
Karate
Champ from Bloodsport.
All right.
It's not a gaming movie, but he's saying most ridiculous representation of gaming or VR. I'm just going to throw that in there because we were talking about it, and when I watched some of those videos of that game on YouTube, they do not match what we saw in Bloodsport. Yeah. There's definitely a couple added effects that they used.
I don't remember that scene. I'm going to have to look that up. Because... Go ahead.
Somebody in the comments, like when I was watching Karate Champ videos on YouTube, somebody in the comments was like, yeah, this is pretty close to what we saw in the movie Bloodsport, except we're not hearing the watch a knee sound. And I was like, oh yeah, watch a knee, watch a knee. Ha, ha, watch a knee, watch a knee. And I was like, this makes total sense. Like, what is watch a knee? And then I thought about it. Like, I thought about the sound, like I said it out loud. And I was like, oh my God, I totally remember that from the movie. And I'm pretty sure they added that, dude. I don't think it's in the game.
Yeah, I'd have to do a side by side to find out, man. It's been so long, I don't even remember.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of inexcusable because Bloodsport is the greatest film of all time.
I mean, it's a great film, but I don't know if I'd call it the greatest.
Yeah, that's I'm being facetious, really, but
I know.
Yeah, my God, is that film good though?
It is a great film. It is one of my favorite films from that era, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Dunnett asks, in quote-unquote celebration of the release of the Panzer Dragoon remake, what's an old franchise that you want to see remade for the modern era? And do you trust that anyone could actually do it justice? Or better yet, what is an old game you prefer stay old and never get remade?
Man, this is a hardy one.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, it's tough for me not to, like, go back to, like, super... antique games like Atari, things like that. I wouldn't mind seeing like a modern Yars Revenge, but then again, I feel like I wish that would never get remade because I feel like it's good the way it is. What else? I'm trying to think. Actually, I wouldn't mind an updated version of Bloody Wolf. It's a TurboGrafx game. That's one of my favorites. Kind of isometric action game.
Okay.
And that's a lot of fun. That would be pretty cool to redo, or even something like Bonk's Revenge, Bonk's Adventure. I think might be interesting. But I feel like I don't know, man, like it's tough because those games are good the way they are and I don't necessarily need a sequel. And I feel like a lot of times these game manufacturers, they kind of fuck shit up.
Yeah. just kind of going to Joe's point about Panzer Dragoon Remake, I don't know if he included it in this question. I don't think he did, but I know he was complaining about how bad it is.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that sometimes when you tamper with something that's not broken, well, you'll break it. So
I'll need to like pick his brain a little bit, but was it supposed to be a remaster and they just fucked it up, or is it like an actual remake? Like that's the part I don't understand.
I don't know.
They do call it remake. A new remade version of Panzer Dragoon game, true to the original, with improved graphics and controls that suit modern gaming standards. Like, how do you fuck that up? It's just a rail shooter.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough question. I think off the top of my head, I would definitely go back to saying Star Wars Shadows of the Empire for 64. I've already said that before. Choice. I'd love to see that remade. I mean, it's not a franchise per se, but that is a single game I'd love to see remade.
Okay.
And also the Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie games. I had a blast with those. A lot of those like fun, like Rare games by the studio Rare on Nintendo 64. I really enjoyed those, and some of them I didn't finish, so I'd like to see those redone. And then in terms of something staying old, that one's tough, because I think we all fantasize about what some of those games would look like now, but we also know how it would probably be a problem if they were touched, and we have that fear, kind of like how we have with FF7, don't fix what isn't broken. So, I'm confident that that game will be great, but I don't know if I have a direct answer. I think with Metal Gear Solid, if I'm going to go to like one of my favorite franchises, I'm not sure if anything needs to be redone there. They've already come out with remasters, and the Twin Snakes and the GameCube was kind of a hit or miss, so I don't think there's much to be done. I would just be happy at this point with just some remasters and just kind of touch-ups on a few certain games. Like, I'd love to see Asura's Wrath, kind of touched up and remastered for PS4 even would be fine. There's probably quite a few I could think of, but I can't really think of anything old that I would want to leave alone completely. Just at least not right now I can think of anything.
Yeah, I mean, that FF7 remake, I'm so on the fence with that, man.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Again, I still need to finish that goddamn demo. So until I finish that, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I don't want to piss off any fans. All I can say is what I said last time. I'm just hoping for the best. Fingers are crossed. But man, just that original PS1 copy is just so goddamn good.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of PS1 games, I wouldn't mind seeing like Twisted Metal 2 remastered graphically.
Sure.
But, like, don't fuck with the controls. I have not liked Twisted Metal past Twisted Metal 2. I know a lot of people were big fans of Twisted Metal Black, and then there was a pretty well-received Twisted Metal game on the PS3. But for me, in my taste, nothing has been as good as Twisted Metal 2. And it's all about the gameplay. It's not about the graphics. The gameplay is tight and well functioning, and all the characters feel unique. And just in Twisted Metal Black, I don't know what it was. Something just wasn't right. And I know a lot of people love that game. I just never got around to really appreciating it. Maybe I don't know. It wasn't what I wanted.
It seems like such an ancient series when we think back on Twisted Metal. It just immediately transports you right back to like, the 90s and sort of early 2000s, and you think about those times, and it's funny how like that game concept came to be. It's pretty interesting, actually. Yeah.
It's car combat was just such a perfect slice of the 90s. And now nobody gives a shit about them.
No one gives a
those
fuck,
types of games. Remember there was like that, and there was Vigilante 8, and there was I feel like there's a couple other series too.
I mean, here's one of two things. Like, if they brought back Twisted Metal, like, I think there would probably be a good amount of hype. But
yeah,
if there was a game that came out that was similar to it, it would be such a flop, I would imagine. People are like, what? What's this? Like, this is like a ripoff of Twisted Metal. If we're going to bring this back, bring back Twisted Metal for real.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's any way to kind of get around that. Rocket League is probably the closest thing.
Yeah, and that's like its own entity altogether too,
Yeah.
There's no guns in that game. It's just soccer, but at least you're driving a car the same kind of arcadey way, I guess. Well, man, what else do you want to talk about? We spent a lot of time talking about Doom and God of War. We're pretty much coming up on the hour mark at this point. So
I'm starving.
Me too.
Starving.
You want to just wrap it up here, or you want to hit any one of those other topics that we had listed?
Let's wrap it.
All right, man. So, thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it. Hopefully you're all doing well. Swing on by our Discord room, say hi, let us know what you've been playing. And of course, check us out on the web at WDGRpodcast.com. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WDGR Podcast. Will, if they want to follow you, how can they do so?
Sure. On Twitter, you can find me at Will_Gear.
And you can find me at Science-Storm. Will's going to go eat a pizza. I'm going to eat some buttered chicken. We'll see you next week, folks.
See ya.